Hello, Amanda. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Really well. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. And thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Amanda, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, I want to say thank you so very much, Amanda, for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest in yourself. And oftentimes, Amanda, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. Say some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, Amanda, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Amanda, just recently, I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. Then immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Amanda. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day. I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Amanda that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request for me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your insights, your philosophies, the impact your work is having, how you're offering your solutions. These stuffs are beautiful. And just before I sent that request, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Amanda is doing, and not only me now, but even with the audience. And here we are today with the amazing Amanda. So thank you so very much for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and for reaching out and asking. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I'm quite excited to have you on the show today, Amanda, for two reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Amanda, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Amanda on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, Amanda, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got a lot of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Amanda, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Amanda got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Amanda, over to you.
No worries. I suppose professionally to start with, when I left high school, I'd never heard of a financial advisor. I didn't know that they existed or was a career path. And I worked for a friend of my father's who was in the life insurance and retirement planning profession as his secretary for some time. I ended up getting married and having my two children. We were living paycheck to paycheck, as many people do. And one day I couldn't afford to buy lunch. And it was one of those moments where you don't realize you've probably hit the bottom and the only way is up until you look back at that. And I realized that I never wanted to be in that situation again where finances were such a stretch and a stress for the family. and could invest in myself, learn more. I was in a profession that was all about money, so why didn't I look to that to help? So I ended up becoming a financial advisor, perhaps to start with more for mercenary reasons to help my own journey and my family, but knowing that in turn I could use that knowledge to help others as well. So that's what got me started on the path to being a financial advisor. Over the years, I completed my Master of Financial Planning. I did a specialist accreditation in what in Australia we called self-managed super funds, which is taking care of your own retirement money. I've done another one in elder care, aged care arrangements to help our parents when they need to go into nursing care to look after those. There's fees in Australia. There's up to 4 levels of fees that we need to pay to do nursing care per day. And then I wrote a book called Financial Secrets Revealed, and one of the ladies selflessly shared her story of being a victim of financial abuse in that book, which again, I had never heard of, and I didn't know what she was talking about. So that took me down a completely different rabbit hole going, as a financial advisor, why aren't I more aware of this? And how can advisors and professionals become more aware of what the red flags are for financial abuse? So then I wrote a course for financial advisors around the world to be able to recognize and act on the signs of financial abuse so that they are the ones at the coalface helping their clients to be able to recognize if they are victims of this awful thing and how to become survivors rather than be stuck. And look, sadly, there's no cookie cutter approach where I can go follow these 3 steps and you're magically cured. Because it's a very complex area. It falls in Australia under the Domestic Violence, Family Violence Act. We now have in most states that coercive control is a crime in Australia. I don't know how that works in the States, but at least it's being recognised as a form of coercion. And look, honestly, when you hear these stories of horrific abuse, and often one of the first questions that gets asked, well, if it was that bad, why did you stay? A little bit of victim blaming. Often one of the big answers is, I couldn't afford to leave, or I had no income for the children, or no, nest egg that I could take with me. So, having the means to provide for our families is a hugely important and motivating factor in a lot of what we do, and our ability to earn an income, shouldn't be controlled by anybody else. So it's been a long and windy path to get where I am. My children have now grown. They're adults and both work with me in the business. And as of this year, I'm taking Fridays off to spend with my 2 little grandbabies. So it's been a long, windy journey to get where we are now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Your journey is so inspiring. And the part that stood out was when you said you've got to learn more and you invested in yourself. That's a beautiful one, because I know of some folks who they are struggling financially and they already made up their mind that that's it, it's over. I think this is the final. There's nowhere, I'm not going anywhere again. This is where I've got to stay because nothing is working. But getting to listen to your story now, it's amazing. I believe your story would inspire them to take necessary action like you did. You said you decided to learn more and you invested in yourself, and that's so beautiful. And the other part where you talked about financial abuse, it was so new to me too before until a guest of mine explained this stuff. And it's amazing what you're doing because it's having great impact, and that's a beautiful one. So thank you for the beautiful stuff you're doing. So, what is it like working with family?
I think challenging might be a really good word. Um, it's a lovely thing to be able to employ your children, but I think there's also some lines that can be blurred when you work for just mum rather than an employer. So trying to keep those lines unblurred and professional can be difficult at times. trying to keep family life outside the office and professional, to best serve our clients while we're in the office, can be a struggle. I had no issues. I worked with my parents for many years as well. And, to me, they were just John and Christine in the office. And at home, they were mum and dad. My children are completely incapable of doing that. And I'm just mum all the time. So, so look, that's fine. Some people join us completely because we are a family business and we're close like that. And, sometimes when my daughter says, I'll just get Amanda for you, the client will correct her and go, that's mum. So, it does spill over into the clients as well. So it can be a really lovely, lovely thing, but not without the hard yards as well to make sure it stays professional when it needs to.
Exactly, exactly. And you're doing a great job, I tell you, handling all of that. Okay, let's talk about money. All right. So, what's your top money tip? Got it?
I think it's very boring and very cliche, but don't live beyond your means. I think the entire lifestyle, and the media we see today is all about keeping up with the Kardashians and, making sure we've got the latest handbag or purse. There's entire social media, is all about how do you, get better or look better or improve your, image instead of being practical and real. I mean, most of us can't keep up. We shouldn't even want to try. But understanding our numbers will help that. So if we know where our pennies go, it's that old saying, take care of the pennies and the pounds look after themselves. It's a bit British. I'll have to update it for America. Take care of the, look after the quarters and the dollars will take care of themselves. It's a very simple process, but if we're constantly spending on credit cards, chasing the next big thing, and we really don't need it. I think coming to an understanding that stuff is just stuff, and in a year or two you might be handing it out to the charity shop or giving it away, or it's you might still be paying it off on the credit card, but when you don't even want it anymore. So making some more mindful decisions when we purchase rather than impulse decisions. You really like the look of something, have a think about it for 24 hours. Do you really need another pair of shoes, another dress, another whatever it is? Or, is your life perfectly acceptable without it? And I think the idea of doing a budget or a spending plan for most people is either really confronting or really boring. And not knowing how much it costs you to wake up and breathe every single day is actually really more hard because you're not in control. So if you sit down and work out whatever your pay period is, whether it's weekly or fortnightly, what your entire year's worth of expenses are broken down into that, that'll give you control. Are you making enough money to cover all those expenses with some left over that you can take a holiday or reduce debt? Or are you not making enough to cover that and something really has to change before it gets out of hand because you will end up living on credit? So I think understanding whether it costs you, $897 a week to live or $432 is very empowering because whatever's left over, you can direct and control where that goes. Or if there's not enough, you really know something's got to give.
Mhm. This is beautiful, I tell you. Coming to understand that stuff is just stuff and making informed decisions. I got that. So we have two more to go. Okay. So this says, how do I stick to my financial goals? Got it?
Yeah. Sticking to goals is easier when we're totally aligned with what the end outcome is. So I think if we've got a goal of, I just want to put $100 a week away, there's no sort of end value or end outcome to that. If we have, I want to put away $5,000, this year, which is $100 a week, because that will give me an emergency fund. That will give me a holiday that I haven't had with the family in years. That will provide me with a safety net if the tires on the car go. So having a why tied into the goals can make a really big difference. I want to top up my 401k because it means I'll have a better retirement. I think tying it into something that means something to us makes goals so much more easy to achieve. It's easier to say, no, I'm not going out with the boys or the girls to the football or having cocktail night on Friday because that $100 is needed for something else. It makes it easier to make those decisions instead of going, you know what, why don't you all come over here and we'll watch the game and we'll,
Mm,
share it. Everyone bring a plate. So it's not going to be the big expensive night out or blowout that means we can't achieve our goals. So tying it to something that's really important makes it much more achievable for us.
that's so smart. I got that. So this one says, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about leadership?
Or leadership, one of my favorites. I think you can see leadership anywhere. We often think that we need to look at, political leaders or our
Mm,
heroes
mm,
for leadership. But some of the most amazing lessons I learned in leadership came from the poorest people on earth. I was lucky enough to be involved with the Hunger Project and their trips to Malawi and Uganda and India, and got to see people living well below the poverty line using the power of mindset to turn their lives around and become leaders in their community. And, sometimes I think in the Western world, we can think we're superior to those poor people. We've got this idea that we're better than. And, leadership is also something that we think, oh, they're born that way. They're natural leaders or they're born leaders. But we know that there's people who in emergencies just step up. There's something going on and most people freeze and just watch. But there's always those one or two people who rush into the fire. They rush in to save someone from the car. And that's leadership that can be thrust on people. So I don't think it's something that we need to view as, the leaders are these natural people who, go into politics and that sort of thing. Leadership can come from everywhere. It's just taking that step. And I think self-leadership is probably the best way to start.
mm,
It can be as simple as, I don't want to live this life anymore. How do I change that? And it may be education. So that self-leadership is always the first step to improving anything for us, our family, our village, our community, state, our country, whatever it is, to lead by example. We want our kids to do better. We want ourselves to do better in our families. It starts with number one, with us. Buck stops here.
profound words. I got that. Self leadership, so important. I got that. So to bring this to an end, Amanda, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the beautiful stuff you're doing, or even ask you questions, or open your services or programs, how can that be possible?
Yeah, sure. So I think when it comes to money, it's not sexy. It's not to get rich quick. It's very basic. Know your own numbers and live within your means. Be happy and content with
Can you
what we
can you
have.
hear me?
Yes. Yep. Have you got me?
Okay. Amanda, can you hear me now? So sorry. My network went off.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
got you
so
back.
I said, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And for those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the beautiful stuff you're doing, or hop on your programs or services, how can that be possible?
Sure. So I believe that financial services is essentially rather boring. So know your numbers and live within your means. I think being content with what we have is really important. There's always going to be somebody better off, and there'll always be somebody worse off. And if you'd love to reach out and say hi and share your story, you can find me on LinkedIn as Amanda Cassar. I'm the Australian financial advisor, not the American yoga instructor. So there are two of us. But please, I'd love to.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's gonna be the end of the show, Amanda. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.